I want to give you another example outside of the world of the housing bubble that explains why I think this is an important thing for us to know or to have as a critical tool, as a critical concept in management. A lot of management decisions are also taken based on the stories that we tell ourselves, sometimes with catastrophic results. And I want to suggest to you that this is exactly what's going on when we look at the world's worst merger. That's a competitive field. There are a lot of candidates out there for the world's worst merger. But that title currently, if we measure it in terms of the eradication of investor equity, who holds that crown currently? AOL Time Warner, right? AOL and Time Warner, the gold standard for bad mergers. If you're really looking to merge in a catastrophic way, go check out what AOL Time Warner did. They're going to give you the benchmark that you have to exceed. AOL Time Warner wiped out about $250 billion worth of investor equity as a result of their 1999/2000 merger, which brought together the world's largest platform for getting people online with Time Warner, which, as we know, has all this robust content. Question: why did AOL Time Warner merge? What was the logic that informed that merger? The answer to that question is, well, the answer to that question is there wasn't very good logic. But the question is, what were they thinking? Let's ask that question. What were they thinking? If you go back to the internet, way back in the early days of the internet, woo, in 1996, 97, 98, 99, those early days of the internet was a problem. Everybody knew it was this wonderful new tool. It was this great new technology. It was going to usher in a new world. The information revolution was at hand. But there was a problem with the internet, which was, it was great. You could get online, but once you were there, what did you do? Content was the problem. And so there was this strategy that was adduced to resolve this problem known as convergence. Getting online platforms and content had to converge. Essentially, it was the television model. It was the radio model. When you turn on the television, something is being delivered to you, right? If you don't like it, you can change the channel and so on. But essentially, somebody else is responsible for sending content to you. That was how the problem of the internet was being perceived, this question of convergence. And so there was a lot of discussion in the late 1990s about convergence strategies. Experts, panelists in the media, people, all these conferences that were held, all these people were talking about how are we going to converge? How are we going to bring about a strategy of convergence? AOL and Time Warner exemplified convergence. Because you're taking the world's largest company in terms of getting people online, and you're combining with one of the world's largest companies in terms of providing robust content, and you're putting them together. And it's win-win-win. That way you win the information age. Because you're getting all these people online, and then you're giving them the content, maybe that they don't want, but it's pretty good. I like to think, I don't know for sure, but I like to think that when the CEOs, so Case and Levin, who made this deal over dinner, then sent out their minions to go work out the details of the merger, that those minions, people like you and me, almost certainly would have been using a tool to find out bits of information in order to help put the merger together. Like, what's the weather in July when I have to go visit New Jersey, on a site visit or something like that? Where can I go find that information? That tool we call today Google. Right? Google had been around 4 years already. I think it was started in 96. 1999, a lot of people are using Google. So I'm sure that they were using Google to sort of find out bits of information that they needed in order to make this merger happen. The curious thing is, Google makes nonsense of a strategy of convergence. Because Google gives you an effective and reliable tool that enables you to go out and get the content that you want. You don't need content delivered to you with a tool like Google. You become your own autonomous agent in the world of the internet. So how is it that you can have this strategy put together to comply with the imperative of convergence while at the same time using a tool that makes nonsense of the logic of that strategy in the first place? Levin, the CEO of Time Warner, in an article in 2009 or 2010 published in the New York Times, was quoted as saying, well, in 2000, no one could have anticipated Google. True, except for those many millions of people who were already using it. They didn't need to anticipate it, it was already there. How is it that they didn't see Google made nonsense of this strategy, at least gave them pause? And certainly I should note some people did. And indeed, within a very short time of the merger having been signed, it was clear that some catastrophic results are going to happen. I'm going to argue that the reason is because once they had told themselves that story, we have to converge, it became their truth. It's another example of a narrative-driven strategy. AOL, Time Warner, they certainly weren't alone. Many other companies told themselves, if we want to succeed in the information age, if we want to be able to be out front of the information revolution, we have to converge. If we don't converge, we won't survive. Once they told themselves they had to converge, they had no access to an idea that might suggest convergence was rapidly becoming obsolete. They told themselves a story, and once they told themselves a story, they knew it to be true. Which leaves us with the question, and I'm sure we can all, if we interrogate our own behavior, recognize that we have ourselves often told ourselves stories and then acted on them because we know them to be true, only later to find out, ooh, maybe that wasn't as true as we thought. How can we avoid this? Sadly, I don't have a magic formula. There's no easy recipe. There's no simple three-step process. There's no book that I can point you to how to avoid becoming a victim of your own narrative. The only thing I can suggest is that we go back to the wisdom of an ancient Greek philosopher with an attitude problem, Socrates, he who is at the sort of very beginning of the humanistic enterprise. What was the Socratic point about true wisdom? True wisdom consists in knowing you are not wise. The greatest knowledge that you have is knowing that you do not know. In other words, there is never a point where you get to stop asking questions. There is never a point where you shouldn't be interrogating critically the decision-making, the logic that you're bringing to your own decision-making. If we can perhaps apply that kind of Socratic impulse, maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't have all the answers. That's, I think, the easiest, or at least the best. I don't think there's an easy way, but it's at least the best way to avoid this kind of trap of narrative thinking. It's remarkably rare, sadly. Very smart people fall victim to these kinds of narrative frames. But it is perhaps the best way that we have to try and get ourselves outside of it.